All right. Thank you all for coming. You know, we did get the bill last night about 6:30. We reviewed the bill, and there are a lot of issues, but I think I can boil it down to three major issues. First is what's clear is this toll bill has been bought and paid for by taxpayers' money. And the reason why I say that is we now know why Governor Lamont wanted to tie the bonding bill to this toll bill. And that's because his debt diet just got exceeded by some $300 million. And that's how you buy votes. That's how you buy votes. You buy votes by making promises. He said he would not go past $1.1 billion. And then with statutory $1.4 billion, he's at $1.7 billion. So that's how you do it. Number two, toll rates. It is absolutely unclear on how these toll rates can get raised. And you can read this bill and say that the committee, the TPC, which is the committee that controls a lot of this, can raise toll rates without legislative authority and without a legislative vote and without a public hearing. So toll rates can be raised by an unelected body, and it is clear. Because what is clear in that section is it says they cannot add more trucks, they cannot add cars on their own, but it's silent on the issue of toll rates. And that's done purposely. It's done to allow that to exist with ambiguity so they can do it. And the third issue is tolls on cars. If you read the bill, it says that the bonding for the first 2 years will have a restriction that will last for 10 years, as long as bonding goes, but only on the first 2 years of bonding that says trucks only. There's several reasons why that doesn't work. First, they could refinance just those first 2 years of bonding and get rid of it. That could be an expensive proposition. But also what's written in the language is emergencies and adequate, what they call adequate provisions of protections, which is typical language. And we use that with the teacher's pension plan. When they wanted to refinance the teacher's pension plan, they just did adequate protection on the bonding, and they violated the bonding covenant, and the bonds folks were fine with it, bondholders were fine with it. Same thing here. If you're just tolling trucks, and that's what you say in your bond covenant, and then you say we're going to add cars, that's more money for the bondholders. And you just say you're entitled to that money. So you haven't hurt the bondholders, you've improved their position. So that type of safety feature, if you would, really doesn't work at all. And the bottom line is, after 2 years, we could very well see cars and all trucks tolled in Connecticut without the fear of a bond covenant stopping it. That could happen. So those are the three major concerns we have. There are more, but I would argue that the three major concerns: exceeding the debt diet to buy votes, allowing some unauthorized authority, not legislative, raise toll rates, and leaving the door wide open to toll cars after 2 years at a minimum. That's how we see the bill right now.
The loophole that you're talking about is the one that's on page 10 regarding the so-called emergency. It would say that it would take 3/5 of the legislature to approve a change, right?
Well, there's also adequate provision. That is, you can violate a covenant. It's in the bonding covenant itself. It says if we give you adequate provisions, adequate protections. We did that for the teacher's pension, right, where they said you need to put a year's worth of payments off to the side and back that up with some lottery income in case that gets depleted. The bottom line is it's a workaround. So when you're saying we're only going to toll trucks to pay off these bonds, but now we're going to include cars, that by its very definition is more than adequate provision for the bondholders. So it's very easy to walk around this.
So you're saying that the two lines that say trucks only are baloney because this paragraph is in between those two lines?
No doubt about it, that they could change it and not have to worry about the bondholders.
What about the argument the trucking industry just made about of these dozen gantries, there's at least 4 or 5 of them that they feel could be easily diverted?
Well, I think that is an issue. And you know, one of the things that I'm remarked about, this governor has said, we have the numbers, they're precise, they're accurate. And in this bill, they're leaving it up to some other folks to set the rates. I thought he knew the numbers. I thought it was an exact. Now we got this sliding scale from 6 to 13 if you have a transponder, from 6 to 13. Where's the pro forma? Where are the numbers? How do we know this even works? How do we know we're not going to wake up a year from now and we're going to say that we're not raising enough money with these tolls? And I think the reason why you're not seeing the numbers, I think the reason why he hasn't disclosed them to anybody in this room is because they don't work. And he doesn't want to get called out on the numbers. If he has the numbers that shows this work, he should give them to us. But he's even in the bill itself, it's an admission to say, I don't know what rate works, so they're going to just get together and do the initial rate without legislative authority, without a public hearing. They're just going to do it on the side. I think that's fundamentally wrong.
Len, just to be clear on the technicalities of the workaround, you're saying though it would still take a 3/5 vote, even if they identified adequate backup provisions, resources. It'd take a 3/5 vote.
No, I don't think you would need 3/5 vote for adequate provisions at all. Just like there wasn't, well, it'd be like the teachers. All they did was do the teachers' refinance. There was no vote in the Senate or in the House on the teachers' refinance, as I recall it.
It says 3/5 right here.
That's for emergencies.
Oh, just, this is you're talking about.
Only for
You're
emergencies,
saying
not
if they-
emergencies.
I hear you right. You're saying if they make adequate fiscal provisions, backup provisions, you believe the General Assembly could change this, for example, to add cars with a simple majority vote?
Yes.
What is your understanding on this authority that you call the TPC? There are legislators on it, but you're saying it would not go to a General Assembly for a vote if they wanted to change the toll rates?
Well, the General Assembly's not on it. We have picks. And I might add that it does allow, if I wanted to pick somebody who is a legislator sit on it that has the particular background, I could do that according to the bill. But there are picks of the, just like the typical ones that we always do in the Capitol, but it would not be the legislative body making a decision. It would still be this group.
Len, on that point though, couldn't the legislature, notwithstanding that we said this group can set the toll rates, we decide we're gonna set the toll rates for this year. Same thing with, I guess, the bond restrictions. I mean, what's to prevent that? I mean, you guys could, as if you're still in the minority, you guys could force a vote on toll rates, right? You could introduce legislation, an amendment, and say, on the floor of the Senate, say,
Absolutely.
force a vote.
But what you're doing is you're ignoring the public as well. There's a whole process to that. If you said, look, toll rates are going to be set by the legislature after a public hearing and then a vote in the body like we do normal bills, yeah, we could. Look, if we were the majority and this thing was still kicking around, we would certainly change the law to make sure there's a public.
But doesn't the legislation also direct the Department of Transportation, or at least the Commissioner, to develop regulations? And couldn't those regulations require a public hearing before any vote by this body or could this body itself adopt a rule that requires a public hearing before any toll rate vote?
And I would say anything is possible, but I would say why not put that in the language? If you are putting out a bill that you believe is the right thing for the state of Connecticut, why wouldn't you put in that bill, not leave it up to the DOT commissioner, put in the bill, public hearing, public comment, legislative action? Why wouldn't you do it? And why would you leave it silent unless you were trying to make sure no one caught on to this? That's the scary part about this. If they believe it, they got plenty of time. They could change the bill between now and whenever we're going to vote on it. But that's a major concern, and it should be for everybody.
That they're giving you an opportunity to testify at this meeting on Friday, and have they said anything to you about a special session on Monday, or allowing it to come during the regular session as a special session within the regular session?
So that's a lot of questions. So I'll take them. I understand it to be an informational hearing.
Yeah.
Generally, informational hearings are not public hearings,
Right.
which makes me extraordinarily concerned. I thought we were going to have a public hearing where the public's going to be able to testify. Informational generally is by invitation. I haven't been invited yet, but so I don't know what the format is. I just heard invitational, which made me think that they were not doing a public hearing. Number two, I was told.
Actually,
Go ahead.
Senator Lamar last Friday said that what their plan would be to invite a panel of the DOT and I guess OPM to come and make a presentation of the administration's case, and then it would be open up to public comment. I mean, that's what, and that was only just one chairman, so
Yep.
obviously.
So I haven't heard any other details other than informational. As
Special
far as
session,
holding
special session,
days,
and regular
we were
session.
told by the Senate to hold Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I've informed my guys to hold Monday and Tuesday. And that's all I know.
But wouldn't it be technically possible to wait until the regular session opens?
Look, there's no
And then-
emergency
No.
that you have to do this in special.
No, but you
Special
could-
sessions
you
are
could
for
call a
emergencies.
Special session within the regular session, can't you?
I don't believe you can have a special session during regular session.
But if it were to go into the regular session, then there would have to be, legislation would have to be drafted, there would have to be hearing, there would have to be notices, then the Transportation Committee would have to presumably vote on it. Then I'm assuming the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee would have a role. I mean, it would go to various committees, would it not?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Why not?
Well, I know, do you think that's part of the reason why they don't want to do it?
I think there's a lot of reasons why they don't want to do it. They don't want to have it in a 2020 legislative year so that it cannot be used against them in November 2020 by saying, well, we didn't do that last session. We did that in some special session. I think number two, they don't want it to take up any more time than it's taken up in this building. But I think we're so close, there's no emergency, and that's what a special session's about. An emergency, like the hospital bill, because they had to do all the filings before a particular federal deadline. And this should, if we're going this close, just go into regular session. And look, they could always insert the bill. You don't have to wait. They could have the public hearing and then insert the bill on the desk of the legislators during session. And we could vote on it within the first 3 weeks of regular session if they wanted to. So what's the urgency of doing it 2 days before regular session? I think it's disrespectful to the body. I think it's disrespectful to the institution and speaks to the arrogance of the majority.
That might be the advantage, though. I mean, obviously, the fact that they're doing it in a special session, maybe that's more of a question for them, but the rules
Yeah.
are a little bit different. I mean, as far as a 5-day, or giving it 5 days for a public hearing or whatever, which this apparently is not, but if it doesn't have to go other committees, and it's a one-item agenda.
So let me
Is that
say,
easier to
they,
get through or not?
I will say this, in the rules, I think they complied with the 5 days, okay? Because the bill came out on Monday, and you have 5 days for a public hearing, and you count the day that you give the notice and the day that the hearing is held. So as I read the rules, I think in fairness to them, they did comply with the rules. I mean, it was a little after 5, but not a big deal. They complied with the rules. So I would say, in fairness to them, they did give a 5-day notice. I'm not exactly sure what the notification out in the world is, but at least in this building, there's been a
That
5.
applies to both regular and special sessions?
And,
You
in,
have to do that?
and interim session.
And interim.
Yep. Well, it's not special session, just regular session and interim session. There's a 5-day notice. In fairness to their argument, what's right is right and the fact is a fact. I believe they qualified for that notice.
Could you talk about the argument to the alternative to having tolls? I mean, people that are for these tolls are saying we need it to fix.
Well, we put out a plan that shows that you don't need it, that you can pay down on pension liability, your credit card, and use those monthly payments to help finance the transportation system. And the problem is just that nobody believes that these tolls are going to remain truck tolls. That the door is open, and I've talked about how in this bill you can see the navigability to getting cars being tolled. And that's what's going to happen in the future because people just don't trust government. It's not going to be limited to trucks. Compound that by not even have the data in front of us that shows that their truck tolling works. There's no data to even suggest that their truck tolling works. It's been a moving target right along. All right. Thank you.